All right, today we've got a story that really hinges on one single choice. Do you sell your dream for a fortune, or do you hold on to it when you have absolutely nothing left? It's a legendary moment in Hollywood history, and it all kicked off with a truly heartbreaking decision.
Our story starts with this number, $25. It doesn't sound like much, right? But for one man, at the absolute lowest point in his life, it was everything. It was the price he got for selling his best friend, his dog, just so he could afford to eat.
So, who are we talking about here? Well, let's go back to the mid 1970s. We're talking about a struggling actor named Sylvester Stallone. And to say he was down on his luck, well, that doesn't even begin to cover it. I mean, this was a picture of true desperation. He wasn't just a little broke. He was selling his wife's jewelry just to get by. He was living in an apartment that had no heat. And to make it all worse, the very tools of his trade, his voice and his face, were seen as total deal breakers. A complication at birth left him with that famous slurred speech, and Hollywood producers just looked at him and said, nope, not a leading man. He was completely up against a wall. It had nothing to do with talent. It was all about perception. You see, the industry had a very specific idea of what a star should look and sound like, and Stallone just didn't fit the mold. To them, he was just a nobody. But then, right in the middle of all of this struggle and rejection, one single moment of inspiration changed everything. A little spark of an idea was about to become a masterpiece. So Stallone's watching a boxing match. But this wasn't just any old fight. This was the one and only Muhammad Ali against a complete unknown underdog, a guy named Chuck Wepner. Wepner had zero chance, but he went almost 15 rounds with the greatest of all time. And Stallone saw a metaphor for his own life in Wepner's incredible heart and his refusal to just give up. And that inspiration just lit a fire in him. He went home, and fueled by this idea of the ultimate underdog, he wrote the entire screenplay for Rocky in one insane, nonstop 20-hour creative burst. He knew, he just felt it in his gut, that this script was his golden ticket. So with this incredible script in his hands, he starts pitching it around town. And this is where the real test began. Because it wasn't just about getting the movie made anymore, it became a battle between his desperate need for money and his artistic integrity. And the producers, they loved the script. The offers started coming in and they just kept getting bigger and bigger. First, 25,000, then 100,000, then 250,000. Can you even imagine that? You're so broke you had to sell your dog, and now somebody is offering you $250,000. The offers finally peaked at an incredible $350,000. Back then, that was life-changing money. But for all that cash, for the promise of a life where he wouldn't have to struggle anymore, Stallone drew a line in the sand. There was one thing he would not give up. His one condition? He had to play Rocky. The producers literally laughed. They wanted a real star, a big name. They only saw Stallone as the writer. But for him, this wasn't just another role. He felt like he was Rocky. So this decision was way beyond a career move. This was about his identity. This was a choice between securing his future and selling the very essence of his dream. So this was it, the ultimate choice. On one side, you have $350,000, a fortune that would solve every single one of his problems. Security, a warm apartment, a totally new life. And on the other side, the dream itself, the role he felt he was born to play. To Stallone, giving that up wasn't just selling a script. It felt like he was selling his soul. He said no. He walked away from the $350,000. He chose to stay broke, to stay in that cold apartment, rather than compromise on the one thing that mattered most to him. And unbelievably, his massive gamble paid off. The producers, they were so blown away by his conviction, they finally gave in. They agreed to let him star in the movie, but for just a fraction of the money and on a tiny shoestring budget. But Stallone's dream was finally happening. So he gets the deal. He's got some money in his pocket, not a fortune, just 35 grand for the script and a small salary. So what's the very first thing he does? It wasn't about celebrating or buying some fancy new thing for himself. He went straight back to the store where he'd sold his dog. He waited there for 3 days until the man who bought him finally came back, and he bought his best friend back. That just says everything about his character, doesn't it? The very first thing he did with his success was to right the deepest wrong from his time of desperation. And from there, the story just became the stuff of legend. Rocky was released in 1976, and it became more than just a film.
It was a cultural phenomenon. It connected with millions of people, and it went on to win 3 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. His refusal to sell out was validated on the world's biggest stage. So why does this story from nearly 50 years ago still hit so hard? Because it has a powerful, powerful lesson in it for every single one of us. The world is constantly going to try and buy your dream for a fraction of what it's really worth. It'll offer you security, it'll offer you an easier path in exchange for your vision. Stallone's story teaches us that real success is found in protecting that core vision, even when, and especially when, it's the hardest thing in the world to do. And that brings us to the final and most important question. We all have that core thing, right? That non-negotiable part of our ambition, our art, our identity. So as we finish up here, just ask yourself, what's yours? What is the one part of your dream that is not for sale at any price?